My presentation is on the greatest love story ever captured on film, and it's a reminder that there was a time when we could tell a love story that mattered. A love story that reflected a good love, a lasting, deep love, the kind of love that sacrifices and supports for each other, and the kind of love that, though things may change and people may age, a good love that endures. And the time when we could tell those stories was 1999. So before we get any further, I wanted to go over some content warnings here. There are some bugs, some really bad choices, some even worse eyebrows, some consensual kissing, some dead-ish people, some non-consensual kissing, and some pasties. On a more serious note, there is also a somewhat off-screen depiction of suicide in like a 90s camp style. If any of this bothers you, you should probably just stop here. All right. So this is Imhotep. Imhotep is our Romeo, or he would be our Romeo if he met a girl on Sunday, married them on a Monday, had sex with them, and was dead by Wednesday. But he's not a fool. This is about deep love, real love. It's a good love story. So he's not Romeo. He's Imhotep. And Anck-su-namun is his lover. These two love each other for real, like the good love, that deep love. Unfortunately for her, she, Anck-su-namun, is the property of Pharaoh Seti I. Pharaoh Seti I, in theory, loves Anck-su-namun, but he reveals himself to actually just be a controlling jackass. Here he is treating his property, trying to decide who touched her, because that is apparently punishable by death in this society. So Pharaoh Seti I is revealed that he in fact does not love Anck-su-namun. He's just a dick and a controlling monster. So Pharaoh Seti I realizes that our boy Imhotep is in fact the person who touched Anck-su-namun, and Anck-su-namun does the most logical and correct thing, and she kills her master, as we all should. So he's dead, but of course Imhotep and Anck-su-namun, they love each other forever. So Anck-su-namun here is so supportive of Imhotep and his career goals, and so certain of her faith in him and his love for her, that she believes that he will bring her back from the dead, because it's part of his job, and that because she killed the pharaoh, she's already a dead person, right? The punishment for killing the pharaoh is, of course, death. So she takes her own life, and Imhotep flees. But you'll notice, even though she's dead, Imhotep still loves her. And even though he's dead, Pharaoh Seti I is still a dick. So, of course, as any good doting boyfriend would, he goes and he attempts to bring her back to life. Unfortunately, the guards find out, and the punishment for attempting to bring back to life the person who killed the pharaoh is death by beetles, which is apparently a rather gnarly death. Sad for him. So now we're in this scenario where every character in this story who has had a speaking line is dead. Imhotep and Anck-su-namun still love each other. The death does not change that. And Pharaoh Seti I is still a dick. Death doesn't change that either. And now we're introduced to the modern version of love, which is really quite bad. And here we have Evelyn, who is a 1990s trope of the nerdy and naive but cute girl. And she immediately finds herself in some non-consensual kissing with this dude whose name is Rick. Rick is clearly a fuckboy and only was interested in Evelyn because she was literally within arm's reach. That is the only thing he knew about her, and then of course he assaulted her as a result. And because Evelyn is, again, a trope and a blasting critique on modern romance, she decides to go with him anyway. Because, she's going to make bad choices, because making bad choices is the only way that people get together these days. On the plus side, they run into our boy Imhotep, the real paragon of romance and of love in this story. So, of course, because these two are just a caricature of the modern dating scene, Evelyn gets drunk, blackout drunk, and attempts to get with Rick, but she basically passes out, and there is some semi-consensual, very drunken smooching going on. But that's the best that Evelyn's going to get because that's what she expects, right? She is a modern creature who thinks that all she has to do is get drunk and hook up with somebody, and that's the best form of love she's going to find. So for whatever it counts, she is into Rick, or at least she is into Rick enough to get drunk and smooch. However, our boy Imhotep had to borrow those eyes. Those aren't his. He actually stole them from somebody who wore glasses. But in his defense, in however many thousands of years BC, glasses weren't a thing. And if you didn't have good eyes, you probably just died. That guy wasn't dead, so he assumed the eyes were good. They weren't good, and he can't tell that Evelyn is not Anck-su-namun. So he thinks that she is Anck-su-namun and, is deeply in love with her. Or at least deeply in love with Anck-su-namun. Who happens to be in these jars, or at least her internal organs are in these jars. But, he hasn't quite figured this part out yet. His eyes are pretty bad. Maybe his cognitive powers have gone not great because he's missing a piece of his skull there. So we have the scenario where Imhotep thinks he's in love with who he thinks is in love with who he thinks Evelyn is, and Evelyn is willing to drunk smooch with Rick. So Imhotep, our boy, goes ahead and steals some more organs from somebody else, like he stole those eyeballs. And this has been pretty good for his complexion, as you can see. Unfortunately, it hasn't been good for his judgment, and he's still, non-consensually kissing on Evelyn. Because, again, as a, woman in the 90s or in the modern day, this is just your life, right? Just men taking advantage of you. That's all there is to it. Damn with the patriarchy. All right. So this is where we are now. And then, of course, she, being a fool and naive and making terrible decisions, decides to go with the other guy who assaulted her. And I know this looks like bondage fun times, but this isn't. This is actually non-consensual. And not only is it non-consensual, but it's a non-consensual threesome. So Imhotep is doing a real dick move here, right? Imhotep and Anck-su-namun, pictured here, are in a very strong, very, very long-term relationship. They've been together for several thousand years at this point. And he's just bringing home some fresh meat to make a fun threesome, to try something kinky, and also, involve a little bit of murder, but to try to, liven up their love life, right? And so Anck-su-namun, of course, is deeply in love with Imhotep, who is, of course, deeply in love with Anck-su-namun. The fact that she's not quite as pretty as she used to be doesn't matter to Imhotep. The fact that she's not quite as alive as she used to be doesn't really matter to Imhotep, because he loves her. Luckily, Imhotep has also realized that Evelyn is in fact not Anck-su-namun, and so, that thing's over. Thank goodness, that was weird. Evelyn and Rick are still basically just on drunken smooch territory because, hey, that's the height of romance in the modern day. Rick, however, is good at setting boundaries, or not really, but is willing to enforce Evelyn's boundaries in this scenario because it's in his benefit. So he hops down and is going to put an end to this whole unfortunate bondage murder scenario that was happening out here. Tragically, Anck-su-namun is killed in the melee. So she has now died for a second time. And although she is now, yet again, killed a second time, Imhotep is still in love with Anck-su-namun. Evelyn and Rick still smoochy. So Imhotep actually just kills. He doesn't kill himself. He allows himself to die. He allows himself to be taken to the underworld, to the other side, to wherever it is that Anck-su-namun, having died for a second time, went off to. Because he wants to be with her more than he wants to be anywhere else. He's waited thousands of years, brought himself back to life, brought her back to life, and he's not going to be without her again. So he's going to follow her into whatever is next. So the end scenario of this film basically is that Anck-su-namun and Imhotep are both dead for the second time and both loving each other. That never changed. Not from when she was young and hot and full of pasties, and when he was dead and half a monster, when she was semi-alive, to when they were both dead again. That love is eternal. It's lasted longer than both of their double lifetimes. Whereas Evelyn and Rick, the most that they have in common is that they're really into high-waisted pant lines and a drunken smooch. But also because, it's the modern day, they happen to be near each other, and therefore they're going to hook up because there's nothing else to do, and that's the end of the film. Hope you've enjoyed the presentation. Good night.